I thought my brother loved me, until an email from our family lawyer revealed he'd erased me from our parents' will. My world shifted forever. I'm Marisol Vega, 32, and for as long as I can remember, life revolved around Vega Builders. My parents, Luis and Rosa Vega, founded the company in 1992, and weekend mornings meant climbing into Dad's Ford F-150 with a lunchbox of tamales, riding to job sites where Dad taught me how to level concrete and Mom handed out lemonade to the crew. My half-brother Rafael, 7 years my senior, was Dad's protege. At 12, he could read blueprints better than seasoned foremen, and by 18, he negotiated contracts. To me, he was the golden child and my partner in every dirt-filled adventure. After Dad's sudden death in 2008, Rafa stepped in as CEO at age 29, steering Vega Builders through grief and the 2009 recession. I moved to Miami for my master's in urban planning, but every Christmas and summer, I returned to help manage projects, measure joist spacing, and taste Mom's mango habanero margaritas on the porch. I trusted Rafa to keep our family's legacy alive. Then last month, as I finalized a waterfront development proposal for Miami-Dade, my phone buzzed with an email from Mr. Simmons, the family's estate attorney. Subject: **** urgent, Vega family will discrepancy. Marisol, ****. I discovered an amendment to your parents' will dated 6 months after your father's passing. It lacks your initials and bears a forged signature for Rosa Vega. This amendment transfers 100% of Vega Builders and all assets to Rafael alone. We must act immediately. Mr. Simmons, my heart froze. Dad always insisted we share equally, splitting Vega Builders 40% to 40% minus 20% between Rafa, me, and Mom. The thought that Rafa might have cut me out sent me reeling. I booked the next flight to Houston. Stepping into Hobby Airport, the sticky heat of Texas felt suffocating. Memories flooded me. Dad's booming laughter in the shop, Rafa's triumphant grin at my first home design project, Mom cheering from the veranda. I forced myself to focus on the present crisis. My inheritance was under threat. Mom met me at the Vega driveway, her face drawn but resolute. Rafa stood on the porch in a crisp shirt, his smile too controlled. "Back early," he said, voice smooth. I showed him the email. His color dipped. "There must be a mistake," he replied. "I'll call Simmons." Mom's jaw tightened. "Let's go talk to him together." We gathered in Dad's drafting room, the walls still adorned with blueprints and Dad's old drafting table scuffed with pencil marks. Mr. Simmons arrived with 2 binders, the original 2008 will and the fraudulent amendment. He spread them across the desk. 1. Original will, 2008. Asterisk. Signed by Dad and Mom, initialed on every page by me, allocates 40% to Rafa, 40% to me, 20% to Mom. 2. Amended will, 2014. Asterisk. Signed by Dad's typed name and Mom's forged signature, no initials from me, gives 100% to Rafael. Simmons tapped the forged amendment. Without your initials, and with evidence of a traced signature, this amendment is invalid, but we must challenge it to restore your share. Furthermore, I discovered 5 Vega Builders properties transferred to 2 shell LLCs under Rafael Vega's name. Total value exceeds $3 million. He handed us title deeds. Asterisk Galveston Duplex re-registered to Redwood Holdings LLC. Asterisk Beaumont Quarry Site to Gulf Coast Ventures LLC. Asterisk Dad's beachfront lot. Asterisk abandoned subdivision off I-45, times the old concrete plant downtown. Each deed bears your family's seals, but the notarization patterns reveal overlapping impressions and inconsistent ink flow, classic signs of forgery. These transfers slipped under your parents and your radar. My chest tightened as I recalled childhood Saturdays measuring joists in that concrete plant. Rafa had always seemed like my protector. Now he was the architect of theft. I thought, asterisk, all those summers building with him. I never imagined he'd steal from the very foundation Dad laid. Mom's eyes filled with tears. He stole everything we built together. I thought, we'll file a petition to freeze the shell accounts, contest the will in court, and pursue civil claims for breach of fiduciary duty, plus possible criminal charges for forgery. It will be a lengthy battle, but your evidence is strong. I swallowed hard. What about Dad's dream projects? The community center he sketched in his journal, the scholarships he planned. Simmons tapped a leather ledger. We'll leverage those as proof of your parents' intent. But first, gather financial statements, board minutes, and any correspondences illustrating Rafa's unilateral control. That afternoon, I confronted Rafa in the cavernous warehouse where we once played hide-and-seek among steel beams. Dust motes danced in the sunlight, filtering through high windows. Rafa leaned against a stack of drywall, phone forgotten in his hand. I thought, "Why, Rafa? Why erase me?" He sighed, the confident mask slipping. "I thought I was saving the company. You were in Florida. I had to act fast during the downturn. I thought, protecting the company doesn't give you the right to betray our family." He rubbed his forehead. "I thought hiding it would spare Mom and you pain. I never planned to hurt you this way." I clenched my fists. "You took my future." He flinched, guilt flooding his eyes. For a moment I saw the brother who taught me to swing a hammer. Then he straightened. "I'll fix this. I promise." I thought, his remorse feels fragile, but I have to believe him. That night, sleep evaded me. I lay on Dad's leather recliner, flipping through his journal, and found a folded page. Dad's handwritten codicil. Greater than **** codicil. November 2009. ***. Greater than to ensure my legacy benefits our community. The Vega Community Center must open by April 2013. Upon opening, $1 million from Vega Builders' general assets shall fund its operations. Failure to meet the deadline releases the fund to the City of Houston. Alarm drove me upright. We had less than 8 months to finish the project or lose Dad's $1 million bequest. I realized our battle against Rafa's betrayal and hidden loans was only half the war. We now raced a ticking clock to honor Dad's dream. Update 1. The dawn after uncovering Dad's codicil, Mom and I convened at Dad's drafting table. Blueprints for the community center, a low-slung hall with classrooms and a gym, lay spread out beside the codicil. Time was our enemy. We needed to align construction milestones with the deadline while fighting the legal battle over the will. Rafa joined us, fatigue etched into his features. He slumped into the drafting chair. "I feel responsible for everything that went wrong," he confessed. "But I'll do whatever it takes to finish this center and repay the trust I broke." Mom drew in a steady breath. "First, we solidify the legal front. Mr. Simmons has already filed injunctions to freeze the shell accounts and contest the amendment. Meanwhile, we must accelerate construction. If we can pour the foundation by December, frame by February, and enclose by April, we'll meet Dad's covenant." I mapped out a schedule. Concrete trucks booked, steel trusses ordered, permitting timelines accelerated. I called our architect team, urging overtime and weekend crews. Volunteers from the local church offered help with painting and landscaping. A community fundraiser was planned for early November to raise operational funds beyond the $1 million trust. By week's end, trucks poured concrete at dawn. Rafa stood at the edge of the slab, staring at the firm foundation beneath our boots. He turned to me, face grim. "No matter what happens in court, we can salvage Dad's dream if we meet that deadline. Anything else we can lose. But not this." I nodded, feeling the weight of every childhood memory in the firm base below. It was time to build not just a structure, but a renewed family bond. Update 2. I woke before sunrise, the Texas sky still bruised purple over our half-finished community center. Concrete trucks rumbled down the access road even earlier than planned, their headlights carving through the dawn mist. I stood at the edge of the foundation, Dad's dream cast in wet cement, and felt the weight of every promise I'd made. I thought, his remorse feels fragile, but I have to believe him. If Raphael truly meant to repair what he broke, he'd match my commitment here. I grabbed my hard hat and walked toward the portable office trailer, where blueprints and schedules lined the walls. Mom and Rafa were already there, coffee in hand. The three of us huddled over the master construction timeline. "By next Tuesday, we need framing started," I said, tracing a finger along the timeline. "That buys us 3 months to finish interior work." Rafa frowned. "We're on track with concrete, but steel delivery was pushed back 2 days. I'll call the supplier now. Mom set down her mug. I'll reach out to the volunteer coordinator. We need extra hands for drywall and painting. I nodded. I'll confirm our outreach events. Holiday toy drive in December. Volunteer build day in January. As they sprang into action, I stepped outside to take a deep breath. The morning air smelled of fresh lumber and damp earth. I closed my eyes, imagining Dad's booming voice. Asterisk. Measure twice. Cut once. Milena. Asterisk, he'd always called me that when I misaligned a board. Quality matters. Asterisk. I checked my watch. 6:30 a.m. The first crew of framers would arrive in 15 minutes. I hurried back inside. All day, the site buzzed with coordinated chaos. Steel beams rose against the sky, their rivets clanging like distant church bells. Construction workers called instructions across the yard, muffled by jackhammers. Volunteers carried buckets of joint compound to the drywall station. I darted between zones, checking permits in the office, approving paint colors in the lobby, resolving a plumbing leak in the restrooms. Mid-morning, Simmons called with a court update. His voice crackled through my earpiece. Good news. The judge granted summary judgment on the forged amendment. The original will stands, and your 40% stake is secure. The Shell LLC assets remain frozen pending appeal. I felt my shoulders loosen for the first time in weeks. Thank you, I said, voice tight with relief. That's a huge win. Don't celebrate just yet, Simons warned. Your brother's appeal is imminent, and Pacific Horizon might challenge your amended payoff schedule. Stay vigilant. I closed my eyes. This legal battle isn't over until every piece is locked down. Late afternoon, Rafa found me by the steel trusses. His face looked both hopeful and haunted. How are you holding up? He asked. I'm tired, I admitted, but determined. This center has to be the legacy Dad intended. He ran a hand through his hair. I've been thinking about what you said. About trust. I know I can't expect forgiveness overnight. I met his eyes. I didn't say forgiveness. I said I need to see it every day. In our work. In your actions. He nodded. Understood. We stood in silence, watching the sun angle through the skeleton of steel beams. I thought, if we can rebuild this structure together, maybe we can rebuild our relationship too. As dusk settled, the site lights flickered on. I gathered the core team, project manager Carla, foreman Joe, and the volunteer leads, in the trailer for a quick briefing. Tomorrow we start framing the north wing, I announced, pointing to the plan. I need you all there by 7 a.m. Give me daily updates on progress and any snags with inspections. Carla tapped her tablet. Subcontractor confirmed. 2 extra carpenters will arrive. Joe nodded. I'll coordinate with the inspector to stay ahead of any code issues. I smiled, energized by their professionalism. Let's make this happen. Dad's codicil is our deadline, and our promise. That night, I drove home under a blanket of stars, exhaustion and adrenaline coiling in my chest. In the rearview mirror, the community center site lay dark except for a single floodlight illuminating the poured foundation. At home, my suitcase from Miami sat by the door, reminders of obligations I'd set aside for this fight. I dropped onto the couch and texted Simmons, "Thanks for the update. Let's stay ready." Mom's gentle voice drifted from the kitchen. "Dinner's in 10, she called. As I headed in, I thought of the next steps. Legal appeals, Pacific Horizon negotiations, construction milestones, community events. The road ahead was steep, but for the first time, I felt the team, Mom and Rafa, walking alongside me with purpose and truth. Morning arrived with an unexpected crisis, a surprise inspection from the county fire marshal. We'd passed previous safety checks, but new regulations on fire-rated doors threatened to stall framing progress. I met the inspector, a stern woman with wire-rimmed glasses in the lobby. "Your plans show NFPA-rated doors at every egress," she said, scanning the drawings. "But your current door frames are standard, no fire rating label." Heat flared in my chest. "Can we install rated doors tomorrow morning? I'll cover any premium costs." She frowned. "You have 24 hours. After that, we'll issue a stop work order for safety violations." I thanked her and hustled back to the trailer. Pulling Rafa aside, I explained the situation. His expression hardened. "Let me call our supplier," he said, dialing on the spot. "Rated doors are in stock. Extra $5,000 for rush. But we'll absorb it. We can't risk a shutdown." I exhaled, relief and pride mingling. He was stepping up again. "Good. Let's do it." By evening, the doors were en route, and I drafted a crew schedule for immediate installation. Over the next week, we surged forward on two fronts: a legal appeal, filed by Rafa to overturn the amendment challenge, and relentless construction push. Each morning I led briefings and tracked inspections. Each afternoon I met with community leaders to ensure volunteers felt informed. Nights blurred as I signed affidavits, reviewed contract clauses, and sketched interior layouts. One evening, exhausted, I found Rafa in the lobby, tracing his fingers over the mosaic tile. "I owe you an apology," he said quietly. "I was proud, arrogant. I lost sight of what mattered." I rested my hand on his arm. "I needed to see that. It's why we're here." He looked at me, eyes glistening. "Thank you for believing in me." I smiled. "Just keep showing me." With 2 months left to Dad's codicil deadline, the turning point came when Pacific Horizon Development's CEO agreed to renegotiate our payoff schedule, impressed by community support and the evidence of project momentum. Their revised terms cut our interest rate and extended principal payments over 5 years, transforming a potential siege into a manageable partnership. Construction milestones fell into place: framing complete by mid-February, exterior sealed by early March, interior finishes in April. The site team celebrated each milestone with impromptu cookouts and high fives. I watched as the building, once an empty slab, evolved into a vibrant space. Classrooms lit with art murals, a gym with polished hardwood, offices echoing with early morning laughter. One Sunday, Mom, Rafa, and I walked the nearly finished center side by side. I opened the door to the main hall, sunlight streaming through windows, dust motes dancing in the air. "I can almost hear Dad's voice," Mom whispered. Rafa placed his hand over mine. We did it together. I looked at the empty stage and imagined community events, youth concerts, and local gatherings. I nearly cried, but held it in with a breath. "This is just the beginning," I said. Update 3. I woke before sunrise on opening week, my mind racing through every checklist item. The community center, a structure born from countless battles, stood mostly complete. Walls painted in Dad's signature sage green, solar panels glittering on the roof, new basketball hoops gleaming in the gym. Yet, a final storm brewed on the legal horizon. Raphael's appeal on the forged amendment was scheduled for a hearing in 3 days. If the judge reversed the summary judgment, our restored inheritance, and therefore the entire project's funding, could be at risk again. I glanced at my phone. Multiple missed calls from Mom and text messages from Simmons filling my inbox. I swallowed and dialed his number. "Morning, Marisol," Simmons's gravelly voice answered. "The appeal hearing is tomorrow at 10. Judge Carmichael tends to favor clear chain of custody issues. We'll need to present your notarization expert to testify on the forgery evidence." "Are you ready?" I closed my eyes. "Yes. We'll have everything prepped." "Good. And Marisol, brace yourself. Raphael's legal team just filed a countersuit claiming you withheld documents that cast doubt on the original will's validity. They're digging for any procedural misstep." My chest clenched. They were trying to distract us, harassing my mother's reputation. I squared my shoulders. "Thank you, I'll be there." My day began with a final site walkthrough alongside Rafa and Mom. Volunteers buzzed around, tying up loose ends, final landscaping touches, test runs of the sound system in the community hall, Neat stacks of chairs in the multipurpose room. Children from the local after-school program darted in and out, their laughter echoing like music. Seeing their joy galvanized me. I found Rafa by the East Wing's sliding doors, frowning at his phone. "How are you holding up?" I asked. He tucked the phone away. "Nervous. I hate leaving this project for a courtroom battle tomorrow." I placed a hand on his arm. "We'll face the hearing together. You've already shown you can stand by Dad's vision and fight for it. You can do this." He managed a wry smile. "Let's finish strong here first." That afternoon, I practiced my testimony with Simmons and his paralegal. The conference room was sterile, white walls, a single table, and felt miles from the sunlit job site. Simmons reviewed cross-examination strategies. "Stick to the facts," he coached. "When they attack your credibility, remain calm. Refocus on the evidence." I nodded, voice steady but heart pounding. "What about the countersuit?" Simmons sighed. "They're grasping at straws. We'll file a motion to strike it as frivolous, but be prepared for more mudslinging." I swallowed, steeling myself. This hearing would test not just our legal arguments but our emotional endurance. That evening I returned to the site for a final sunset inspection. The golden light bathed the basketball court in warmth. I sank onto the bleachers, alone with my thoughts. Dad had sketched these stands himself, dreaming of youth leagues on crisp Sunday mornings. I traced the grain of the wooden bench, imagining his hand guiding mine. I thought, for every moment I doubted Rafa, he's shown up to rebuild trust. Tomorrow, he needs me to believe in him one more time. I dialed Rafa's number. "Hey," he said, exhaustion in his voice. "Meet me at the center at 7 a.m., I told him. "We'll go over one more time. We end this together." He paused, then replied, "I'll be there." Courtroom showdown asterisk. The next morning, we arrived at Harris County Courthouse. Mom in a charcoal pantsuit, Rafa crisp in navy, and me in a modest gray dress. The hearing room was packed. Reporters, family supporters, and two groups of lawyers eyeing each other across the table. The air smelled of polished wood and anxiety. Judge Carmichael, stern and silver-haired, took the bench. Simmons presented our motion to strike Rafa's countersuit. The judge excused it as without merit, easing one threat. Then the forged amendment challenge began. Simmons called our notary expert, a forensics specialist with a microscope and camera. He demonstrated the overlapped stamp impressions and variance in ink viscosity, explaining how the signature trace was inconsistent with standard notarization. Rafa's lawyer sputtered objections, but the expert stood firm. Next, Simmons introduced the chain of title records. He laid out a chronological map of property transfers from the original corporate accounts to the shell LLCs, showing how Rafa had diverted assets. Each tabletop exhibit displayed crisp title deeds and account statements flagged for anomalies. Rafa's attorney stood to cross-examine me. He asked pointed questions. "Marisol, can you confirm you never signed these amendments?" I affirmed. "And you had full access to company records at all times?" I stated that I'd been away in Florida but had authority and access whenever needed. He tried to paint me as uninvolved, but Simmons countered by introducing correspondence where I had approved major expenditures and requested monthly financial summaries. Finally, Rafa's lawyer sputtered, "This court must consider that Ms. Vega's prolonged absence from daily operations constitutes acquiescence to her brother's management." The judge raised an eyebrow. Simmons responded calmly, "Under corporate law, beneficial owners maintain rights regardless of physical presence, especially when statutory notice is required for amendments. Ms. Vega's absence does not excuse forgery and misappropriation." After hours of argument, Judge Carmichael adjourned to deliberate. The gavel fell, and the room held its breath. 15 minutes later, he returned. "Greater than asterisk, asterisk, Judge Carmichael, asterisk, asterisk. I find the amended will invalid due to clear evidence of forgery, and I order restoration of Marisol Vega's 40% interest. Furthermore, the transfers to Redwood Holdings LLC and Gulf Coast Ventures LLC are hereby voided, and those properties shall be returned immediately to Vega Builders. Costs of this hearing shall be borne by Rafael Vega, jointly and severally. This court's injunction remains in effect." Case dismissed. A hush fell before applause broke out. I felt relief wash through me like cool water. Mom's hand found mine. Rafa looked pale but relieved. I thought, we won. We really won. Back at the community center site, we celebrated with barbecue and homemade pie from Mom's recipe. Volunteers and contractors cheered as Rafa personally handed me a carved wooden plaque engraved ***40% Marisol Vega***, symbolizing my restored share. He embraced me, voice thick. Thank you for never giving up. I hugged him back, tears streaming. We did it together. The next week, we finalized closing statements for the reclaimed properties. The beachfront lot, duplex, quarry, and plant returned to the corporate books. Simmons ensured all paperwork was filed, sealing our victory. Even Pacific Horizon's revised payoff terms remained in place. No further threats. Our final hurdle lay ahead, fulfilling Dad's codicil. With the inheritance secure, we turned full attention to the Rosa and Luis Vega Community Center's grand opening planned for April 14th, one day after codicil's 5-year anniversary. Construction crews worked around the clock, finishing the last details, installing the final playground swings, stocking the library shelves, varnishing the stage floor. On opening morning, I stood at the entrance with Mom and Rafa, greeting families streaming in. Sunlight glinted off the new plaque above the door. Asterisk, Rosa and Luis Vega Community Center. Opened April 14, 2013. Asterisk. It felt surreal. Our triumph woven into each brick and beam. Children raced for art classes. Seniors settled into the lounge. Local nonprofits pitched tables in the hallway. Mayor Delgado returned, cutting the ribbon alongside me. Cameras flashed, and memories of that initial courthouse step came flooding back. I took the mic. Me, asterisk. This center stands as proof that truth and perseverance can rebuild even the deepest wounds. It's our home, your home, thanks to every one of you. Crowd cheers echoed in the hall. I scanned the faces, neighbors, strangers, volunteers, united by Dad's dream and our family's fight. That evening, as the last lights dimmed, I found Rafa by the oak. We traced our initials carved years ago. I placed my hand over his. Bibliothèques Gue, me. Asterisk. We've come full circle, from partnership in play to partnership in purpose. He smiled through tears. And we'll keep building, as Dad intended. I realized then, the greatest inheritance isn't assets on paper, but the bonds fortified through adversity. Our family's legacy wasn't finalized in wills or deeds. It was alive in every child's laughter and every helping hand that walked through our doors. Update 4. The morning sun poured through the tall windows of the Rosa and Luis Vega Community Center, turning dust motes into dancing motes of light. I found myself standing alone in the main hall, early volunteers still arriving, their laughter echoing faintly off freshly painted walls. I ran a finger along the smooth plaster near one of the new murals, a vibrant depiction of Dad and Mom surveying a foundation, and closed my eyes, letting the quiet wash over me. This place had once been nothing but a slab of concrete ringed by rebar. Now it was alive with promise. In just days, we'd gone from finishing touches to a grand opening that welcomed hundreds. Yet the looming shadow of stewardship weighed on me. We had regained our inheritance and completed Dad's codicil, but managing a community center meant making sure it thrived under the very vision Dad had sketched in that old journal. My to-do list overflowed. Grant applications, volunteer training, budgeting for operational expenses, scheduling after-school programs, and forging partnerships with local nonprofits. I opened my notebook and added another bullet: convene board meeting, elect community center committee. I would need a board to oversee finances and programming. I drafted bylaws and governance structures late into the night. I glanced at the clock, 7:15 a.m., time to begin. Volunteers arrived in a trickle. Ms. Alvarez, whose church choir would perform at opening, Mr. Nguyen, a local tech entrepreneur donating computers, and neighborhood teens eager to help haul folding chairs. I greeted each by name, handing out schedules and volunteer badges. Their energy was contagious. I felt renewed enthusiasm ignite within me. Raphael arrived shortly after, clipboard in hand, dressed in a crisp polo and jeans, practical attire for site visits. He looked more relaxed than I'd seen him in months, the courtroom battles behind us, but I knew his mind was always racing. He approached me with a grin. "Ready for launch day?" he asked, voice light. I managed a genuine smile. "As ready as I'll ever be." He glanced around, pride evident. "It's beautiful. Dad would be so proud." I nodded, fighting a lump in my throat. He'd hate all the paperwork, but he'd love this. Rafa laughed softly. "It's Dad's perfect compromise, sweat equity mixed with community spirit." We walked side by side through the hall, past rows of chairs, tour brochures stacked neatly on tables, and card tables set up for sign-ups. At the far end, the gym doors stood open, revealing polished hardwood floors and fresh lines for basketball and volleyball courts. I watched the morning light bounce off the floor, recalling late-night talks with Dad about youth leagues and mentoring kids through sports. "How's the tech setup?" I asked. "Computers are installed, network tested. I'll supervise the IT orientation at noon," Rafa replied. He tucked the clipboard under his arm and gave me a thumbs up. Just then, I felt a flutter of nerves, as if opening day were an exam I could still flunk. But I reminded myself, we had faced forged wills, hidden debts, rival developers, and court battles. This was our moment of triumph, not trial. The ceremony began at 10. Chairs filled quickly, and a small crowd gathered under the oak tree outside for ceremonial remarks before stepping inside. I stepped up behind the podium in the lobby, voice steady but heart racing. "Good morning, everyone," I began. "Welcome to the Rosa and Luis Vega Community Center. Our dream transformed into reality through teamwork, perseverance, and an unwavering commitment to truth." I scanned the audience, neighbors whose homes I'd helped plan, contractors who'd worked on this site, families who would use these rooms. I felt buoyed by their smiles and applause. When I finished, Mom stepped forward, her eyes shimmering. She spoke of Dad's vision for community, of the importance of coming together in hard times, and concluded by introducing Rafa to cut the ribbon. He followed through with a brief thank you speech before we opened the doors. Children ran inside, gasping at the bright colors and new equipment. Seniors sampled the library corner. Teens fingered keyboards in the computer lab. The next 2 hours were a whirlwind. Guided tours, photo ops, sign-ups for programs, and media interviews. I slipped between stations, hanging back during the TV crew's questions, hugging Mom when she beamed, patting Rafa on the shoulder when he orchestrated a digital demonstration. At noon, I collapsed into a chair in the volunteer lounge, exhaustion finally catching up. Rafa appeared with 2 iced coffees. He handed me one and sat opposite. "You earned this," he said, nodding. "Take a breath." I sipped the cold brew, craving more sleep than caffeine could fix. "I can't believe it's real." He leaned back, eyes warm. "We've earned this, together." The days that followed were a mix of triumphs and trials. We launched after-school art classes, vocational workshops, and senior yoga sessions. Attendance soared beyond our projections, proof that the community center filled a critical gap in local services. Grants poured in from civic foundations, and the city eventually provided a small annual stipend. Our volunteer pool grew, and a dedicated board of directors, comprised of parents, teachers, local business owners, and nonprofit leaders, was elected. Yet managing the center revealed new challenges. Budget revisions needed constant attention. Operating expenses and repairs accumulated. I spent late nights reconciling accounts, applying for small operational grants, and negotiating bulk rates with suppliers. My dream of focusing solely on design and planning shifted to encompass fundraising and administrative duties. One morning, I discovered a discrepancy. Vendor invoices for the gym's floor waxing were double invoiced by a subcontractor who'd overcharged us. It looked like a simple bookkeeping error, but in the back of my mind, I worried about corruption creeping into our project. I flagged it for investigation and tasked the volunteer accountants to cross-check all vendor contracts. An hour later, I confronted the subcontractor's manager, who sheepishly admitted his billing error. He had been under pressure from a competitor bidding for his contract. I refused to let that compromise our integrity and issued a formal letter of reprimand. The incident reminded me how fragile trust could be, even when you think the worst is behind you. It also underscored the importance of transparency and checks and balances. Small-scale ethics can prevent systemic rot. I drafted a policy manual for the center, detailing procurement guidelines, conflict of interest rules, and whistleblower protections. This governance document became the foundation for our board meetings and decision-making protocols. Amid these operational dramas, Rafa and I found moments of sibling reconciliation. We walked the grounds at dusk, sharing memories and aspirations. He admitted that the weight of his past betrayal haunted him, that he wrestled with shame when overseeing members of the community whom he'd once wronged. I listened, reminding him that his actions to restore trust spoke louder than any apology. "I'll never erase what I did," he said one evening, "but I'll spend the rest of my life rebuilding that trust." I nodded, thinking of the oak tree under which we'd sealed so many pacts. "And I'll stand by you, because I know you can be better than your worst mistake." At 6 months post-opening, we held a midway anniversary celebration. Community members gathered again, offering feedback and stories of impact. A youth mentoring program that kept kids off the streets, a computer literacy class that helped single mothers find jobs, a senior coffee hour that alleviated loneliness. Each testimony felt like a life saved. Mayor Delgado presented the center with a civic award for community enrichment. I accepted the plaque on behalf of my family, my parents, mom and dad, Rafa, my brother, and every volunteer who had swayed a shovel, painted a door, or greeted a newcomer with a smile. That night, as I closed the center, I walked the empty rooms, flicking off lights and locking doors. The silence felt sacred. I thought about the months of legal combat, hidden debts, forged signatures, and midnight crises. All of it led to this, a living testament to authenticity and second chances. I stood in the main hall, bathed in moonlight through the skylights. I whispered to the empty room. I promised Dad I would build his dreams. Thanks to Mom, Rafa, and our community, I did. I walked out, turned off the security alarm, and stepped into the cool night. In the distance, the oak tree stood silhouetted against the stars. I headed home, my heart full. Weeks turned into months, and the center settled into a steady rhythm of programs and events. I balanced my own career, now splitting time between Miami and Houston, to ensure the center kept momentum. Rafa pivoted back to the construction business, using Vega builders to maintain the center's growth projects, from a youth park to a mobile health clinic. Mom, ever the strategist, chaired the board, guiding decisions with wisdom and patience. One afternoon, Rafa surprised me with a gift. Dad's old drafting desk, restored and polished, placed in my office overlooking the lobby. A brass plaque read, "Luis Vega's desk, dreams designed here." I ran my hand over the walnut grain, tears welling. "That's for you," Rafa said. "Your vision built this place. You deserve to work at Dad's desk." I embraced him, gratitude overwhelming. "Thank you." Amid celebrations, a final curiosity emerged. A set of letters in Dad's journal that had gone unnoticed. They revealed Dad's early correspondence with local civic leaders, expressing concern about youth crime and lack of communal spaces. I realized the center was just the beginning. New challenges awaited, expanding service into rural outposts, initiating scholarship funds, and potentially replicating the model in other towns. I shared these ambitions with Rafa and Mom. We drafted a 5-year strategic plan: outreach to underserved neighborhoods, partnerships with universities for research, and establishing a rotating board seat for community youth. The plan felt ambitious, but it honored Dad's expansive vision for community resilience. That night, the three of us sat under the oak, sipping cold lemonade, star lanterns strung across the branches. I thought back on every late-night construction drive, every tearful phone call with Simmons, every courtroom victory. We had navigated betrayal, uncovered hidden debts, doubled down on transparency, and built something lasting from our family's trials. Rafa raised his jar, to Dad and to Melina, my sister, my partner. Mom chimed in, to family, truth, and building dreams. I lifted my glass, voice steady. To the future, one brick at a time. Update 5. The weeks after the grand opening melted into a steady current of summer activities. Our community center hum, with youth art camps in the mornings, vocational workshops in the afternoons, and senior socials in the evenings. I split my time between Miami and Houston, staking out hotel rooms in both cities so I could oversee a waterfront revitalization project by day and ensure the center's programs ran smoothly by night. One sultry July afternoon, I arrived bleary-eyed at the center to find chaos erupting in the gym. Video screens were flickering with unread error messages, and volunteers hovered uncertainly around the court floor. Tech Whiz volunteers reported the new audiovisual system had suffered a firmware glitch that wiped all scheduled presentations for that evening's leadership seminar. Without the slideshow, months of planning by the nonprofit coalition would unravel. I locked eyes with Rafa across the jagged glow of emergency lights. "This is our first big setback in operations," I said, voice steady though my gut churned. "Can you help me troubleshoot?" He nodded and sprang into action, fetching his laptop and assembling volunteers around him. I rallied the coalition leaders, offering bottled water and a calm smile while Rafa guided them through a manual restore from backup drives. We recovered the files minutes before the seminar's start, and the hall erupted in applause when their first slide appeared on the big screen. Relief rippled through me. Even after forging legal victories and finishing construction on time, I realized that day-to-day runnings would test our resilience just as fiercely as courtrooms and contractor negotiations. Stellar planning wasn't enough. We needed agile problem-solving and unwavering teamwork. That evening, Rafa and I stood under the oak, tallying our lessons learned. "I underestimated these operational hiccups," he confessed, wiping sweat from his brow. "I thought construction was the hardest part." I laughed, tension easing. "Every phase has its own storms, but we'll weather them." He offered a rare smile. "Together?" "Together," I agreed. Asterisk. A push for expansion. Asterisk. Emboldened by our center's early success, I began sketching plans for Phase 2, a mobile outreach van to bring after-school tutoring and health screenings to nearby underserved neighborhoods. Dad had once mentioned a mobile unit in passing. I dug out his journal sketches of a retrofitted school bus emblazoned with Vega Builders' logo. Sharing the idea at a board meeting, faces brightened with excitement. Securing funding required grant applications and sponsorship pitches. I pitched to corporate foundations, emphasizing the van's role in bridging educational disparities, and held crowdfunding drives online, sharing video testimonials from families helped by the center. In 2 months, we raised enough to purchase a used bus, schedule retrofitting, and hire a driver/educator team. The unveiling of the Vega outreach van brought cheers as neighborhood children clambered aboard at the first stop. I stood by the curb amid balloons and banners of community partners, my heart full. Dad's dream had transcended walls and beams. Unexpected medical emergency asterisk. But just as momentum peaked, Mom fell ill. Early morning, I received a frantic call from Rafa. Mom had collapsed with chest pains and was rushed to the ER. I booked a red-eye flight back, anxiety clawing my chest. Arriving at the hospital, I found Rafa pacing the lobby. His composure shattered when he saw me. "She's stable, but tests show arterial blockage," he said, voice cracking. "They're prepping her for surgery." Fear seized me. Memories of childhood sickness visits, held by Mom through fevers, flooded back. I squeezed Rafa's shoulder. "She's strong. We'll get through this." The center's board rallied in Mom's absence, handling event scheduling and volunteer coordination, while Rafa and I took shifts at her bedside. 2 nights later, the surgery was successful, a triple bypass. When Mom awoke to find Rafa and me by her side, she squeezed our hands weakly. "I'm still your matriarch," she whispered, voice raspy but defiant. Relief and gratitude overflowed. I realized then that the same solidarity that revived our family at the center's opening would carry us through personal trials. Scaling up asterisk. By October, Mom recovered and resumed chairing the board. The center's programs expanded. A food pantry launched in partnership with local grocers, a legal clinic operated pro bono by area attorneys, and music lessons funded by a County Arts Council grant. We also hosted our first large-scale fundraiser gala at the Center Black Tie, catered by neighborhood chefs, with live jazz in Dad's memory. The event grossed $150,000, enough to endow a scholarship fund for first-generation college students, another of Dad's whispered dreams. Each success felt like a personal victory, yet the demands escalated. I balanced speaking engagements on community development, advisory board calls for my Miami duties, and drafting strategic plans for the center's long-term sustainability. Rafa grew confident in managing daily operations, stepping in to authorize purchases, vet new board candidates, and oversee marketing campaigns. In my absence, he delivered weekend tours to walking groups and led press interviews when I was on the East Coast. One Monday, I flew in to find the center's boiler malfunctioning as temperatures dipped. A broken heating system threatened to cancel senior wellness classes. I stomped outside in a blazer, approaching the maintenance team and negotiators to secure emergency repairs. Sweat coated my back as we rerouted portable heaters and arranged O&M contracts. By dusk, warmth returned. I sank into a volunteer chair, chilled but triumphant. That evening, Rafa joined me, handing me hot cider. "You're unstoppable," he laughed, admiration in his eyes. I shrugged. Necessity breeds resourcefulness. I thought, every problem we solve here cements our family's redemption. One fix at a time. Lessons in leadership. Asterisk. Through these months, I learned that running a community center meant more than design and construction. It demanded financial stewardship, crisis management, community engagement, and a relentless commitment to my parents' values. I instituted quarterly board retreats, strategic deep dives into program assessments, budgets, and expansion plans. We developed metrics to track youth outcomes in tutoring programs, volunteer retention rates, and community satisfaction surveys. Data-driven decisions replaced gut calls, even as we held tight to the heart behind every number. I also mentored a cohort of community leadership fellows, local young adults selected to shadow governance meetings and eventually assume board roles. Watching their confidence and ideas flourish reminded me that my role was not only to build a center, but to empower the next generation of leaders. Dad's legacy was not bricks and mortar. It was in every hand raised to volunteer, every voice lifted in gratitude. Asterisk, a new rival emerges. Just when I thought storms had passed, a new threat surfaced. Development pressure on the neighborhood around the center. A consortium of luxury housing developers coalescing under the banner Harbor Heights Redevelopment eyed our block for high-end condos slated to displace low-income families our center aimed to support. They launched a campaign highlighting, quote, urban revitalization and property value increases, accompanied by glossy pamphlets and a petition advocating rezoning. The petition circulated among residents, some swayed by promises of higher home values, others fearful of losing affordable housing. Tensions ran high at community board meetings, where Harbor Heights representatives argued for progress and modernization, while our center staff and local advocates vied to preserve the neighborhood's character. I found myself back at the negotiating table, this time in the mayor's office, presenting impact studies on displacement, affordable housing need, and the role of our center as a community anchor. I coordinated with housing nonprofits, legal aid organizations, and neighborhood coalitions to propose an alternative plan. Mixed-income housing that incorporated community center services, with a portion of units permanently affordable. The debate reached a climax at a city council hearing, echoing my earlier courtroom battles but with higher stakes. Not just a will or a loan, but the heart of an entire community. I testified alongside residents, elderly couples who relied on our food pantry, single mothers who trusted our after-school programs, and local entrepreneurs who credited our vocational training with their first businesses. Council members listened as I spoke. Greater than Harbor Heights may promise luxury, but at what cost? Our community center is the glue holding this neighborhood together. Displacement will sever those bonds. We propose responsible growth. Housing that uplifts, not uproots. After hours of testimony, the council voted to revise the rezoning plan, incorporating our mixed-income model and preserving a buffer zone around the center. Cheers erupted, echoing through the chamber. I felt tears of relief. We had once again defended the community's future, not just our family's legacy. Update 6. I stepped out of the city council chambers into the humid evening air, the glow of streetlights reflecting off wet pavement from a brief summer rain. The victory, the mixed income rezoning plan, felt like a final stand for our community's soul. Neighbors crowded around me, voices raised in celebration, smartphones capturing the moment. I hugged Mom and Rafa tightly, the weight of months of struggle lifting at last. Mom beamed. "You were magnificent," she whispered, pride softening her eyes. Rafa slapped my shoulder, his grin genuine. We did it. We drove back to the community center, under the canopy of oak and magnolia trees. The building glowed warmly, windows lit by the after-school art class inside. Teens painted murals depicting local history. Seniors in the lounge corner sipped tea and chatted quietly. I paused on the steps, heart swelling. This place, born of betrayal, legal battles, hidden debts, and ceaseless work, had become the beating heart of our neighborhood. Over the next weeks, life settled into a new normal. The center's board approved. Phase 3, a scholarship fund for first-generation college students from our district. Applications poured in. I joined a selection committee that met through late nights, reading essays about dreams of nursing degrees, engineering careers, and business startups. Dispersing funds from the gala's proceeds made every struggle worth it. I thought of Dad's first sketch of the scholarship idea, scribbled in his journal, and felt his presence in every award letter sent. Raphael returned to Vega Builders' corporate office, now revitalized by a transparent governance structure we'd established. He led with humility, recognizing the importance of ethics over profit. He launched a mentorship program pairing senior employees with interns from our vocational workshops. His apology tour, once directed at me and Mom, expanded to the entire company. Contractors who'd held grudges grudgingly shook his hand. I watched from the community center as stories of his genuine reform spread through the local business network. Mom continued to chair the center's board and spearheaded partnerships with local health clinics, ensuring free health screenings became a regular service. Her fierce compassion, once focused on our family, blossomed into guidance for countless families. I often caught her late at the center, reviewing volunteer schedules or comforting a worried parent at the food pantry. She had found her purpose beyond the spreadsheets. One crisp autumn morning, I arrived early to find Dad's drafting table, the plaque still gleaming, set up in a corner of the main hall as a memorial station. Photos of Dad and Mom's early projects, alongside quotes from his journal, adorned the walls. A guest book lay open for visitors to share memories. I sat down and signed my name with tears in my eyes, greater than asterisk. Thank you, Dad, for building dreams we could carry on. We love you. Asterisk. By midday, volunteers had collected dozens of messages. I rode in your bus to school. You helped me get my GED. My daughter found her voice here. Each note reminded me that our story, born of heartbreak and betrayal, had led to empowerment and healing. Late that day, I found Rafa putting away equipment after a youth basketball game. He handed me a half-deflated ball and said, "Remember when we played on Dad's old courts?" His voice wavered. "I'm sorry I nearly destroyed that legacy." I caught his gaze. "You didn't destroy it. You helped rebuild it, better than before." He bounced the ball gently. "I hope Dad would forgive me." I smiled, slinging an arm around his shoulders. "He already has. Forgiveness is what we built on." Asterisk a year later, asterisk Community Center's first anniversary. We hosted a festival on the grounds, live music, food trucks, youth dance performances, and a scholarship award ceremony. I wore a flowing teal dress, feeling both formal and free. Rafa stood by my side in a linen shirt and slacks, hands in pockets, watching our center pulse with life. Mom, radiant as ever, greeted every guest with a hug. Mayor Delgado offered a second commendation, this time for community resilience. He thanked our family for showing us how truth, perseverance, and unity can transform a neighborhood. Reporters snapped photos. Local news anchors streamed live. As twilight settled, I climbed the stage beneath string lights. Microphone in hand, I looked out at the faces. Children dancing, families picnicking on lawn blankets, seniors nodding in rhythm. My voice trembled with emotion. Today, we celebrate a place born from love, forged through adversity, and strengthened by every hand that lent a nail, a dollar, or a kind word. This center stands as proof that even the deepest wounds can heal, and the greatest betrayals can inspire rebirth. Thank you for believing in our vision and making it your own. Applause washed over me, warmth spreading in my chest. After the speeches, I slipped away to the oak tree, pulling Rafa and Mom to join me. We stood shoulder to shoulder, hands clasped. Above us, lanterns swayed in the gentle breeze. I thought of Dad's first beam, Rafa's early thrill at helping me, Mom's steadfast courage, and my journey from shock to leadership. I spoke softly. This is our family's true inheritance, not property or profit, but the lives we touch and the hope we build. Mom kissed my cheek, Rafa rubbed my back. We shared a moment of unspoken gratitude for a journey that challenged and renewed us. Not a tort, not a 20 rebuesher, not a 20 thwite. Biggerate asterisk. Business resumed at Vega Builders under a new board structure that included community center representatives. I joined monthly meetings to advise on community-focused projects. Together we launched a citywide competition for sustainable housing solutions, integrating that same spirit of equity and beauty that Dad championed. Rafa's redemption was now public. He accepted an industry award for ethical leadership in construction, acknowledging his past mistakes and efforts to prioritize integrity. I stood with Mom in the audience, tears in my eyes, applauding my brother's transformation. At home, I framed the award certificate and hung it beside Dad's original blueprints. The wall became a gallery of our family's journey, from sketches of dreams to blueprints of redemption. As Marisol's story shows, the strongest foundations are built on truth and forgiveness. When betrayal shakes us, we can choose to rebuild together. What challenges have you faced, and how did you overcome them? Share below. I read every comment.